Hi, I'm Ethan, a New York City-based small business growth coach and culture transformation consultant. I want to talk today about news that came out last Friday. Today is Monday, August 4th, from the CEO of AT&T. So I want to walk you through a memo that the CEO of AT&T released to management last Friday, informing them of the company's now enforcing their return to office policy. So let's start with Business Insider. AT&T CEO's frank response to employee feedback about a 5-day RTO return to office mandate, and much more. So let's start. AT&T CEO John Stankey addressed a recent employee engagement survey in a memo to managers last Friday. So he talked about, in this memo to management, a more market-based culture in response to a survey that was sent to 99,000 employees, about 73% of their total workforce. So earlier this year, actually back in January, AT&T notifies their employees they're going to go from a hybrid schedule to a full 5-day-a-week back in the office mandate. So he just last Friday, August 1st, told management that this shift now is going to proceed. He said those employees who want hybrid work will have a difficult time aligning with company priorities. So think about that for a minute. The CEO of a company with 100,000 employees said, anybody who wants hybrid work, your values don't align with us. And this is on so many different levels, just completely contrary to the advice and counsel I give my clients. And if you've watched any of the videos on my YouTube channel where I talk about amazing places to work and building great culture, this goes opposite of that kind of sensitivity to individual employee needs in terms of work-life balance, health and wellness, preferred work schedule, all of that stuff. So let's move a little bit further. So AT&T notified workers back in early this year that they were going to move to a 5-day-a-week work schedule. So this has been on the horizon for a while. He said in his memo, in his full memo that he released to all AT&T employees, get on board with this or get out. Issuing ultimatums to your workforce, probably not the best strategy for building motivation and morale. We'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. In a lengthy Friday email message, he addressed all AT&T managers. Stankey shared his thoughts on the results of the company's employee engagement survey, which they had recently tabulated the results on. He said he wasn't surprised, Stankey, by the declining self-reported employee engagement level. And he went on to touch upon some changes the company's going through from a culture standpoint perspective. So a few things to take away. He said in his memo that employees need to reset their professional expectations, because if they're not ready to come back to work full-time, their values might be misaligned with the strategic direction the company's going in. What does that mean? So this is a further statement from CEO Stankey of AT&T. If you're of the small minority, how do we know it's a small minority? Come on, talk about gaslighting. If you're of the small minority that shared comments similar to, I've heard this nonsense before and I'll ignore things until this goes away, or others who said on the survey responses, things were just fine the way they were. You as an employee, if you're not ready to be on board with coming back 5 days a week, there may be a disconnect between you and your professional choice, meaning future employment here at AT&T, Stankey wrote. So according to the memo that was addressed by Stankey to all management across AT&T, 79% of respondents said that they felt committed and engaged with their work. This is 99,000 employees. So you're talking about 73% of AT&T, multinational corporation, have said that they're engaged in their work, 79%. What does engage with work mean? What does it mean anyway? How do you define that? So here we go. Stankey said that we run a dynamic customer-facing business tackling large-scale challenging initiatives, he wrote. If the requirements dictated by this dynamic do not align with your personal desires as an employee of AT&T, you have every right to find a career opportunity that is suitable to your aspirations and needs. Get out. Get on board. Get out. That's your option, regardless of whether you've been at AT&T for a probationary 30-day period or you've been there 30 years. You don't like it? Get out. Wow. Wow. That said, he continued in his memo, if a self-directed virtual or hybrid work schedule is essential for you to manage your career aspirations and your life challenges, you'll have a difficult time aligning your priorities with those of the company and the culture we aim to establish, Stankey added. So, interestingly enough that he mentions culture. AT&T has undergone a fundamental shift in terms of its culture orientation this year, 2025. It's starting with replacing their hybrid work schedule with a 5-day return to office mandate, which, as I mentioned, happened back in January. Some AT&T employees previously told Business Insider that it became difficult to obtain office desks, parking spaces amid this return to office push from corporate, while AT&T's rival, Verizon, saw the mandate as an opportunity to recruit AT&T employees who are interested in maintaining their hybrid work schedule. So of course, as a competitor, you're going to swoop in and offer different work arrangements. So I want to go to a really, really cool website called The Layoff. Layoff.com. Here's why John Stankey's Friday email is basically a masterclass in how to alienate your workforce instead of engaging them. So I just want to go through some of the points that they raised, because if you haven't noticed this, if you don't watch a lot of my videos, you won't know that the reason I went out on my own in 2009 was I spent 20 years in corporate, mostly banking and financial services. And this is the kind of crap that happened over and over again. And so in my consulting practice, I urge companies to move away with this kind of our way or the highway. You must do it our way. You think about the 21st century workforce with boomers and matures leaving the workforce, tens of thousands every day, and millennials and Gen Zs taking over as the largest two segments of the workforce. This is so out of touch with reality of what their expectations, wants, needs, desires are. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this Layoff.com case study of masterclass in how to Russian roulette your culture. So, leadership failure analysis. There is a discrete tone mismatch. So what John Stankey did, he gave his employees an ultimatum. Align with our values, come back into office, or get the hell out. He warned that any employees who are pursuing or need or want a hybrid remote work offer, they're not going to fit into the future culture. Why this fails? If employee survey emails should be trust-building moments. Of course, the employee email survey is a way for you as an organization to determine how effectively you're serving your people. It's not as a tool to weaponize punitive punishment against those who don't fall lockstep into your command control value construct. He used his memo as a punishment memo. It's defensive, it's combative. Like, how dare you people not show appreciation, kiss the ring, bend over, kowtow to me as Lord Overseer CEO? Gee, I don't know, I've heard that pretty frequently in America from the current administration who oversee this country. So that's the kind of dictatorial mindset that's unfortunately still way too prevalent in corporate America, which is a vestige of the 20th century. He also misread the data. So what did he do? He bragged about 79% employee aggregate response commitment while admitting that engagement fell. WTF? Those can't be reconciled. Why this fails as a strategy? That's gaslighting. That is corporate gaslighting. So if trust is low and engagement is dropping, that's a you problem as leadership. That's not people falling into line or not falling into line with what you demand that they do. Screw that. That's on you. The onus of responsibility is on leadership. So he took what the survey data told him, and I struggle all the time in my consulting practice with convincing leadership or ownership to actually pay attention to what the survey responses tell you. He said he had data from 99,000 employees, nearly 80% of your workforce. And he said that the data that said there was a lack of trust in leadership are that employees are out of alignment with the future direction of the culture of the organization. So also, if you read into his memo, and I'll put a link in the description below, if you're really interested in reading the full memo, there's no accountability. And that is the absolute epitome of lack of leadership. So what does John Stankey, CEO of AT&T, do? Zero admission that leadership's failures in this return to office rollout, workspace shortages, inconsistent communication messaging may be attributable to this employee disengagement. It's not that leaders stood by their values and employees just don't share their values. Is that this is something employees don't want to do. Leaders earn trust by acknowledging their role in the creation of problems. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So Stankey flips the script, blames employees, and completely disowns any responsibility in poor leadership. So he delivers some pretty crappy news, but without a game plan. So what does he do? He declares last Friday, this is our model, period. We're going to make an investment in making this happen without actions, owners, contributors, start dates, end dates, contingencies. That's not an action plan. That's we're going to do this and just fall into line. We don't have to provide details. It's absolutely the opposite of transparency. People at AT&T have already indicated that they doubt, in the aggregate, they doubt the ability of AT&T's leadership to lead. Empty promises, and we're looking into it, just adds to their skepticism. In fact, it destroys whatever vestige of morale is left. And what the hell? Talk about draconian enforcement of a universal policy that maybe not all employees there are falling lockstep behind. You're threatening them. Fear is a motivator. So what does he do? Stay here, fall into line with what we're telling you, or get the hell out. I dare you. I dare you to leave. That's the message. I dare you to get the hell out of here and go find a job. Knowing how bad the economy is and the labor market, and telling people, regardless of tenure, responsibility, if you don't fall into line with our values on this, if you don't follow along with what we're telling you without questioning, go find employment elsewhere. And why this fails. Fear-based messaging might get people to fall into line in the short term. But believe me when I say this, it just absolutely damages any kind of commitment and trust. It destroys any remaining trust, but also it's a PR nightmare. So John Stankey, before he sent out this memo to the management across the whole corporation last Friday, he was already seen as a aloof, old school CEO. In other words, somebody who was ideally suited to lead a pyramid command control industrial pyramid organization of the 20th century. The company, as a result, has been, is, and will continue if they keep behaving this way, to destroy, hemorrhage goodwill with their two most important stakeholder groups: employees first, customers second. The employees have indicated we resent being forced into this return to office without having the support mechanisms in place to facilitate that. You as leadership have not done anything to prepare us for this. You told us in January it was going to happen. And on Friday, August 1st, 7 months later, the CEO is threatening us. The CEO is saying, in effect, trust me or get the hell out. This is the opposite of leadership. It's a reactive ego trip. That's according to the Layoff. Instead of leveraging the survey to connect with employees, which really is the only reason to ever do an employee survey in the first place, John Stankey doubles down on an authoritarian dictatorial style of management. That might make your board of directors at AT&T quite happy, but here's what the fallout is going to be. And trust me when I say it's going to happen. Not if, when. AT&T is going to see a degradation or an erosion of its talent base, people's productivity and performance, and it's going to really, really do damage to its reputational brand recognition in the long term. That's the destructive tendency of what he has done, John Stankey. So again, return to the office or find another job. That's a pretty tough way of framing a conversation. It's a stern directive that he gave in this memo last Friday. Commit to our 5-day return to office or go find jobs elsewhere. And he did it by internal memo to managers, top down. I'm at the top. I will dictate to everybody through those layers of bureaucracy, that command control structure, that you're either going to come back 5 days a week, whether or not we've prepared you for it, and have the infrastructure and operational facilities in place to accommodate, you're coming back or you're finding employment elsewhere. This is corporate America. Despite a 79% commitment rate from the company's 99,000 respondents in this internal survey mechanism, he noted that there was a dip in engagement. He pointed to that being an obvious result of large-scale culture transition at AT&T. I'm not surprised, he wrote. We are midstream on a multi-year journey to build the company we want, not simply optimize the one we have. Here's my question, and it's a rhetorical. Do you really think that what he's saying is we're moving forward to a culture of get on board or get out? Do what we tell you or get out. We don't care what your past contributions or what your future potential is. Get out if you're not on board. Is that really the culture they're moving to? I find it interesting. And by interesting, I mean just toxic as all hell. So, earlier this year, AT&T began phasing out this hybrid work model, mandating employees return to the office every day of the week. The move created initially dissatisfaction among staff, some citing logistical problems such as overcrowded parking and a lack of office space. Still, as far back as when he announced this in January and up until last Friday, August 1st, he's defended this decision, stating it in-person presence for all is crucial for executing major initiatives and fostering collaboration. If a self-directed virtual or hybrid work schedule is essential for you to manage your career aspirations and life challenges, you'll have a difficult time aligning with your priorities. Okay, so let's talk about this culture shift that I said I'd get into a little bit. The memo is part of a broader culture shift at AT&T. He described the company's transformation. Get ready. Listen to this. We're going to transition at AT&T, which, by the way, they've been saying since the 1990s when I worked down the road from their corporate at DMB in New Jersey. So this has been decades of them talking about this. Stankey talked about the company's transformation, cultural transformation, from a traditionally hierarchical, tenure-focused environment to one that rewards performance, adaptability, and innovation. Here's my question. In a company with 100,000 employees, how do you dare say that there's one universal dictate that's applicable for all, and we're going to go to a culture of performance and productivity without taking into consideration how every individual employee's unique work needs, wants, desires dictate a personal career and professional development plan? This is John Stankey in his memo, we have consciously shifted away from some of these elements and towards a more market-based culture focused on rewarding capability, contribution, and commitment. Where the hell does you must be in the office to accomplish that come into play? Do you have any data to support your contention that people perform and produce at a higher level when they're in the office? Is that a universal truism for all, regardless of where they work geographically? The kind of team they collaborate and work on? Do they work on a team at all, or do they do independent work? Are they fresh out of college and can benefit from being in office? Or are they a sandwich care provider where they have an elderly parent and a younger child or children in the house, and they need greater flexibility of a hybrid work schedule? No consideration whatsoever. A true culture that wants to unleash people's untapped potential and maximize performance and productivity would never do this. They'd never do this. So here is more Stankey. Talk about Stankey. Here's more Stankey's memo, what he said. We run a dynamic customer-facing business tackling large-scale, challenging initiatives. If the requirements dictated by this dynamic do not align to your personal desires, you've every right to find a career opportunities that is suitable to your aspirations and needs. Wordsmithing or PR spin for, don't like it? See ya, get out. So here we go. John Stankey. He's serious about the company's culture revolution. He really is. I've outlined some of the key talking points of his memo, but 140,000 people, 73% complete the survey, 99,000 employees. His message, you need to commit, each and every one of you, to adjusting your own behaviors. Rhetorical, here we go. Why? Why? Do you think that this is the best way to utilize your existing talent? Do you think that this is a way to get people to trust you and be loyal to you? Do you think that this is a reward for their past performance? Does this show you how to coach and mentor them? Does it show them that you have complete faith and trust them as adults? No, this is completely contrary to what Daniel Pink wrote in his book about autonomy and empowering employees, where he said you let your employees have control over 4 aspects of their work. Let your employees choose when they work, where they work from, how they get the work done, and who they do the work with. So his message is about 7 months after the company issued their return to office mandate, amid what the CEO described as a longer-term culture shift that was underway starting early in this year. This memo that he wrote on Friday, it's a rare and detailed window into a CEO's thinking during a period of transition. It gives valuable insights for workers beyond just what AT&T employees, and reveals how a large legacy American institution, which is AT&T, a venerable old corporation, they're working to adapt and to innovate. Telling your entire workforce you must do work a certain way is the antithesis of adaptation and innovation. It is the absolute abject failure in leadership in the 21st century to leverage a incredibly transformational workforce. There's no component of this other than COVID's in the rearview mirror. We all need to get back to the business of being in office. Life doesn't work like that in the 21st century American culture of work. It doesn't. It can't. So AT&T tells employees back to work or get out. There he is. John Stankey sent a clear message to align with the company's culture of transformation. In a blunt internal memo sent to all managers, he acknowledged the growing discomfort amongst employees following AT&T's decision that they are now going to enforce this return to office mandate that was made back early in the year. American telecommunications giant AT&T began calling employees back into work full-time early this year. They were phasing out their hybrid work policy. It's been unpopular with staff who flagged logistical issues, as I said earlier, that the company's management brain trust hadn't prepared suitably. He doubled down. Instead of saying your voice was heard, we'll take your feedback into consideration. We want to make this work for everybody. We value you. We care about you and your relationship with us. That's the messaging that would have been appropriate, but it wasn't, because it wasn't done that way. So again, I'll finish up with HR grapevine. Take it or leave it. AT&T CEO John Stankey, ultimatum. That's what this is. It's an ultimatum issued to his people. So, as I said, the company starts calling people back earlier in the year. This announcement, this memo to all management last Friday is kind of line in the sand. It's line in the sand. This is when we say ultimatum. So I've talked about some of the key messaging in the memo. So the shift at AT&T, again, just to kind of tie this up in a pretty Tiffany bow, is a culture shift at AT&T that's underway. They're moving away from what they claim is a prior work environment that rewarded how long you worked there and where you were in the organization's hierarchical structure. So this is John Stankey, CEO. We've consciously shifted away from some of these elements and towards more market-based culture. And I've said this to you. I just mentioned it. That's not what this is about. It's about retribution, punishment. Do what I said. That's not a relationship of mature trust. That is a dictatorial regime that's structured on control and enforcement. And that won't work. It never has, and it never will. So if you are the kind of leader who believes that this is the appropriate course of action, you do not understand that there is nuance in your workforce, that every employee, regardless of functional role they serve, title, office location, amount of tenure, their life, where they are at their current point in their career with you, you don't mandate a one policy for all, because your people are individuals. And it is, as Gandhi said, beneath human dignity to treat human beings as if they were a cog in a machine. You're a machine. You're a company. Your people are your only lasting competitive advantage. It's not your strategy. Sorry. If you have an amazing strategy, but you're not unleashing your people's potential, you will fail. And it's not operational efficiency vis-a-vis technological innovation and tools like ChatGPT, AI, EOS, supply chain, CRMs. Those are what I call lowest common denominators. Those are contributing aspects of efficiency, but you're not going to operationally achieve lasting competitive advantage, because those technologies, everybody has them. You just have to use them to be on par with everybody else, but that's not your differentiator. What's your differentiator then? If not strategy and not operational efficiency, your people. Whether you have 10 employees or 100,000. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please, if you like it, give me the thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel. There's over 600 videos like this on tips, insights, ideas, and inspiration for business startups, business growth, creating an amazing workplace culture, and empowering your people to perform and produce at the highest levels. Thank you. Have an amazing rest of the day. Take care.